To call this meeting to order of the Great Falls International Airport Authority Board, and we'd like to welcome all of you that are here with us today. And we also have two new commissioners that we will swear in shortly. So before we do the roll call and the swearing in, let's go ahead and stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We also have Commissioner Katorowitz on the phone with us. And is it sunny today in Arizona, JC?
Well, I'm in California and I'm on the wrong side of the mountains. It's been raining, snowing, and it's cold. So I need to change my zip code again.
Well, safe travels. I think at this time, the first thing that we need to do is, before we do the swearing in, we'll do a roll call and we'll acknowledge that we have two new commissioners. We'll call them by name, and then we'll do the swearing in. So, Commissioner Talcott? Here. Commissioner Swenson? Here. Commissioner Chipola? Here. Tropila. We'll get that, Joe. We're going to get that down. Commissioner Humble? Here. Commissioner Katorowitz?
Here.
And Commissioner Robinson? Here. And Commissioner Moore is present. All right, at this time would like to welcome Brad Talcott, newly appointed commissioner. Brad is the president of James Talcott Construction here in Great Falls, and also principal owner of Staybridge Suites, and certainly a very active community supporter and a very strong supporter of the airport. Brad, we're really happy to have you on the board. Nice to have you with us. And Dick Swenson, who is the principal for Swenson and Company Accounting, CPAs here in Great Falls, and Dick also has been very active in the community, and I guess in a period of time, a long time ago, or I don't know how long ago, you actually used to do the audit up here at the airport. It was a long time ago. Yeah, so welcome, Dick. Glad to have you here as well. So Brad and Dick, if I could just have you stand, and what we'll do is, if you'll repeat after me, and then you state your name, and then we'll just repeat this. If you'll repeat after me, and then we'll have you sign this document, which is your oath of office. So raise your right hand. I. And your name? Do solemnly swear. And affirm that I will support. Protect and defend. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Montana. And that I will discharge the duties of my office of Commissioner in and for the Great Falls International Airport Authority of Great Falls, Montana with fidelity. Congratulations. All right, so again, welcome, and we'll move forward on the agenda. Just a couple of things. Again, we would like to encourage the public participation. If you have any questions at any time during the board meeting, please feel free to come to the microphone and make your comments. Normally, we're going to hear from the board first, and then if you need to be recognized, just raise your hand so we know that you want to say something, and you'll be recognized. Also, as a reminder, and we have this as an agenda item, but the board is being asked again to sign the conflict of interest statement, and so if you'll please review that and have that signed and returned at the end of this board meeting. And so as we go forward in this meeting and subsequent meetings, if there is a conflict of interest, we would ask that you would certainly state it up front before we have a discussion on the item. There might be a conflict of interest on, and just make that acknowledgement so that we have it on the record. With that, we'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine day-to-day items that require board action but do not appear to have significant public impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion or vote by any board member. We're asking for approval of the board meeting minutes from January 31st, 2012. Payroll checks totaling $60,690.13. Maintenance and operations checks totaling $347,925.74. Approval of the passenger facility charge for $60,000. And the financial reports which were distributed for the month of January. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, consent agenda is passed. Thank you. Moving to the capital funding plan, the director has a few items that he wants to discuss regarding that. Director?
Yes, thank you. And we have a number of items, a couple things I'll report on the director's report. We have most of our current items are on the main agenda today, so the director's report is a little bit brief, but just to update you on some things we've talked about in the past couple of months. We're currently working with Frontier Airlines for the marketing commitment, $55,000 that we committed to spend to market the airport in the summer. And right now we're talking about cities that, focus cities we'll be centering that marketing around. Right now it looks like we'll have a program in Canada centered around Lethbridge and some of the other markets up there. We'll also be focusing on Minneapolis, Chicago, Kansas City, Denver, and Dallas. All of those cities are in our top 20 origin destination airports for Great Falls. And the majority of those cities, I think with the exception of Kansas City, are in the state's top 15 tourist originating cities. So that's why we've focused on those cities. Those are also cities that we have good connections to both ways on Frontier Airlines. So that's the group of city pairs. We're working right now to put together the campaign, which we hope to start over the next probably 30 days to begin marketing those new flights, which start in mid-May. The other thing that's, I think, noteworthy to point out is the FAA did receive a multi-year authorization just a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I think the President just signed the bill last week. This program reinstates the prior funding levels that we historically had at small airports, which is a 90% federal share for eligible projects and a 10% local match. You may recall for almost 10 years we were operating under a 95-5 system. That had been in place. I think 2003 was when that was put in place. So we're back to 90-10. Obviously that does have an impact on our future CIP in terms of our funding level. More or less it doubles the funding level that we'll be required to come up with. So as we get into the budget preparations this spring, Sharon and I will be working to update the CIP and then the capital funding plan that you've seen in the past to look at our projections forward on how that impacts us. There'll be no impact in 2012 because our grants are already in place. We received grants prior to the reauthorization because we've been in fiscal year 2012 since October 1. So we have all of our grants in place for 2012 with the exception of the terminal project, but that project's not receiving anywhere near 90% funding anyway, so there's no impact on the terminal project either that we see based on the new funding levels. So we'll be updating the CIP. You'll probably see that in the next month or the next one of the next two meetings as we get through that program. You'll see changing funding levels for the airport. Then the last thing I'll report on the terminal design, because we don't have any action items on the agenda. We did receive approval from the Design Review Committee 2 weeks ago, went before the city, and so our project has the first of its permitting requirements is complete. The local architecture team, which is headed up by LaRue Page Werner, is working on the remainder of the permitting for that project. And we're still on track. We're about 50% design right now. Probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, the design team will be coming back out to do 60% plan review. Typically, we would do a 60 and maybe a 90 or a 95. 95 would be ready to build drawings. So our plan currently is still to bid the project probably in the May timeframe and start construction in June. The federal funding, because the Reauthorization Act was just approved, the federal funding should come more into focus probably in early April. There's actually a meeting up in Seattle with our regional headquarters in April. It's a conference for all the airports in our region. That's typically where we hear the grant funding levels that'll be available. So I plan to go up and see those folks in about the second week of April. That might be our first real look at the exact level of funding we would get for the terminal, if we don't hear something a little bit sooner than that. So the terminal remains on schedule. We're still hoping to get a grant and be under construction in June with about a year to 15 months of construction. So we should be moved in near the end of the summer in 2013. So, and that's all I have on the director's report.
All right. Is there any questions for John? All right. Thank you, Director. All right. First item on the agenda here is the election of officers. As you know, there are two positions, the chair and the vice chair. They serve for a one-year term. And at this time, I would ask if there are any nominations for the position of chair for the Airport Authority.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Robinson actually raised his hand before you spoke, J.C. But
Oh, okay.
all right.
I would like to nominate Jim Moran as chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
I move nominations be closed.
That was pretty quick. Is there a second on that? I was going to ask if there were any other
I'll
nominations.
withdraw my motion.
Is there any other nominations for chair? Is there any other nominations for chair? One more.
Take the vote, Jim.
Well, you got to do it legally here. All right. Is there a motion for closure of the nominations?
I so move.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I guess. We'll see.
Thank us later.
Yeah, right. All right. I declare the nominations are open for vice chair of the Airport Authority. Is there a nomination for vice chair? Commissioner Humble.
Mr. Chairman.
You're second again, J.C.
You got to be quick, J.C. Commissioner Humble.
I would like to nominate Owen Robinson for the vice chair position.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I waited for him.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Is there a motion to close the nominations?
I move to close the nomination and cast a unanimous vote for the vice chair.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed if there be any? Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, now that we can move forward here and appreciate the confidence of the board, and I know working with Owen and in the past, he's just been a great advocate of what the board's trying to do here, and has certainly been a great leader for the committees that he's served on, and will do a great job, so grateful for that. All right, moving forward, Sharon, on the street assessment extension.
Sure. So, JC, you were right. This agreement has been in front of us for a long time, but we really, when we sat down with the city, there's no issue with the extension of the contract. It was really essentially, we had to determine what were the correct parcels. And through several meetings with the city, we did finally come up with that. And as you'll see, we have two new exhibits with this agreement. We have a new map and we have a new list of parcels. The 7.5% administration fee is still in place. So essentially, it's the same contract. We've just updated those parcels and put a decent map in the extension.
Just have a couple of questions on this. What's that 7.5% translate into in terms of
About,
dollars?
yeah, about
It's
10,000.
going to be $10,000 a year.
And is that pretty much what it has been, right?
Well, it's a little more, but it's because of a couple of new parcels.
There were a few parcels that were never added to the map by the city when they annexed our property some number of years ago. Looks like they were just overlooked. So we've now corrected the map to include all of the airport land.
And actually, Jim, if you, in the budget this year, I did budget $10,000 for that because we knew about that one particular
Right.
parcel that was more at that point. So.
Right. And any issues on the contract?
No, it's the same contract. It's, we're going with the 5-year terms at the extension period, and you know, so it's, you know, a continuation of what we've been doing.
Maybe for the benefit of the new commissioners, maybe you could just give a real brief history on where we've kind of been with this.
Sure. You know, the city has for many years had the street assessment charge that they charge landowners within the city that covers maintenance throughout the city on streets. We maintain our own streets up here at the airport. We actually build them with grant funds and PFC funds over the years. The road all the way around to FedEx. We do all our own snow removal. We do our own salting and sanding and everything else that goes along with roads. In addition to that, the majority of the land that came to the airport over the years came under grant to the city itself before there was an airport authority. So the agreement has always been in place that the airport authority, which is a former recipient of those lands from the city, wouldn't be charged the street assessment because we do our own maintenance, we build our own roads, and so forth. And when those roads need expanded and extended, we have grants and PFCs that we can use to do that. So it's a doubling of funds to have that rather than rely on the city's funds to do that. So it's always been the case that we've paid 7.5% of the normal street assessment for an administrative fee for them to keep our parcels in their database, and that's been in place, I think, all the way back into the 90s, about the time the city was the airport was annexed into the city. So it's always been the case. This is a continuation. Like we said, there were a number of parcels over the years that are outliers that may not be contiguous to the airport that when we were annexed weren't added to the city's maps. So it's taken us a little bit of time to get that agreement straightened out, and now we have a new 5-year term. Actually only 4 years remaining, but a 5-year term extension of the agreement.
Mr. Chairman?
JC, go ahead, please.
I had one question on that agreement. I guess John just said it was the original agreement, but in the hold harmless, and indemnity clause, the first paragraph seems to put all the liability on the city, and then the second one seems to take it away and put the liability on the airport authority.
That's a common construct. It's a dual indemnity. Most of our leases with any governmental entity have that same language, which more or less says we'll indemnify the city and they'll indemnify us. We have the same type of language in agreements with MANG or with the state or any other agency that we would typically deal with.
We're not accepting all the liability, though.
Well, typically all it says is, you know, I mean, the net act of that is if we're sued, for example, someone is hurt on one of our roads, we agree to defend the city along with ourselves, because chances are, you know, we would be sued and the city would be named as a party too, because they're technically responsible for the roads as you know, the caretaker of the streets. So in effect, that's typically what you would read into an indemnity, is, you know, the principal party would defend the other party.
Does that answer your question, JC?
I guess. I just didn't want us being the deepest pockets.
All right. So you're looking for a motion for approval on this? Is there a motion for approval of this street assessment extension contract?
Second.
Is there discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Number 3, Residential Sound Improvement Program Director.
Yes, this AIP 52 is an amendment to the existing engineering contract for the residential sound installation program. This is the construction management portion of the 2012 construction. This is the portion of the work that would be completed probably starting around September and hopefully be complete near the end of the year or slightly thereafter. We already have the grants in place for this program for the year, and as I said before, we retain the 90-10 portion of the grant since we have grants in place for 2012. We haven't gotten into the discussions yet on 2013 in terms of the size of the program and funding for that program. But this portion of the contract over the last 2 months, we had negotiated a fee with Stelling Engineers, who manages this program for us, to oversee the construction management of the program for the summer. As you can see on the summary, we negotiated based on an independent fee assessment that was done by a third-party engineer. That's the typical FAA process for negotiating a scope of work. We were able to negotiate the fee down slightly, well within the IFE amount, or independent fee assessment amount. And Amendment 3 would be a $405,000, $689 amendment to the agreement in order for them to watch over the noise program throughout the summer, proctor the houses for sound and workmanship and those types of things during the construction program. For those new commissioners, we have about $2 million of a program this year. That'll cover about 30 homes for sound insulation over this summer, and work, as I said before, we start about September time frame. I missed anything there, Kathy? Anything else that you read?
So you're looking for a motion for approval for Amendment 3.
That's true.
Is there a motion for approval for RSIP AAP 52 Engineering Amendment Number 3?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, J.C.
I have problems with the entire RSIP program. It was brought to us under false pretenses. The scope of the program was to be no cost to the Airport Authority, and now it looks like it's going to be up to $200,000 to the Airport Authority by next year. I would like to offer another amendment, and that is, after this coming construction season, the Airport Authority suspend participation in the RSIP program.
Before we take a vote on that amendment, let me ask the director, is that something that we have the opportunity to discuss before we move forward? Does that require it?
Yeah, we don't have any scope or
We have no
really
commitment.
commitment right now to 2013. You know, one thing I would point out that we will know better in a couple of months is the phase-in and phase-out schedule of the new MAG mission. And, you know, my thinking on that is that would certainly be a good time to revisit the noise study as that transition's made. Yeah, that's just an opportune time to revise a noise study, and our study's getting to the point where that revision would probably be welcome anyway. So that would probably be a 2014 kind of schedule in order to actually do the noise monitoring with the new fleet mix of C-130s, should we finally get that mission. So just a recommendation that I would have would be, let's, when 13 comes out of the fog, let's look at 13, but certainly 14 would be a very good time to perhaps revisit the entirety of the noise study program and the whole of the program.
Jason, excuse me.
And I think what J.C. was getting at is adding yet another amendment, and this contract was already approved.
Right.
So there would be no amendment to and going forward, because that hasn't been approved. So
Right.
I think the director's correct in just saying, let's revisit a future plan down the road.
Are you all right with that, J.C.? Can you live with that?
He died.
J.C., are you there? Did we lose him?
We're still on. JC?
Well, I was going to ask him to withdraw his amendment. Is
There
there?
was no second.
There was,
He
is
was
there a
proposing
second?
it.
Yeah, he was
So
just
he didn't make
proposing,
a
he didn't
motion.
actually make a motion, so I think what we'll do, you know, I'll take the heat if I get the wrath of JC on this. I think we'll just move on and just, we've had discussion on the original amendment, or the original motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? We'll just wait and see if we can catch him here. If we can't, we'll move on here.
Hello?
Hello?
JC,
lost ya.
we lost you.
Did you get mad at
Here
her?
I am.
You didn't get mad and hang up on us, did you, JC?
No, I had another call come in and it took priority over this one, and I don't understand how to operate this phone and ended up cutting you both off.
We know where we rank, JC. So, did you understand what John's explanation was? I think what we would...
Yeah, I could understand John, but I couldn't understand what Susan had to say.
Oh, go ahead, Susan.
What I said was, the amendment that we're voting on now is a contract that we already approved for 2012. So to offer to make an amendment to this would have no effect because we have no board approval to move forward anyway. So, you know, we wouldn't be amending this contract. And I just suggested that we follow the director's suggested path and examine and revisit going forward at another point in time. 2012 is a done contract, so.
So my question, JC, is are you okay with that?
Okay. I will withdraw my motion.
All right.
And we will do it at a coming meeting.
Yeah, because you're going to have another chance to speak up on this, and we're not committing to doing any more than what we've already committed to, really. So, all right. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Number 4, CH2M task order number 5, item number 1. Director.
Yeah, so in your packet you have a scope of services from CH2M Hill that includes 2 separate pieces of work. The first piece of work is item number 1, and this deals with our construction project in the northeast Aeroplex area, as we call it, in between Holman, Avmax, and the old wooden hangar in our shops down in that area. Last year we did some asphalt repaving. We rubblized the existing concrete, which was dated back to World War II, in place, and we were able to pave over that surface with asphalt. The work ended up being a lot more small lots than we had expected. We had hoped to do all the asphalt work in 2 lots. We ended up with considerably more lots than that. And our engineer came back and asked for through the contractor and the engineer for their testing schedule to have a task order number 5, item 1 here, which is an increase in their testing budget to compensate them for the required testing on that site. The tests that are required to proctor asphalt typically require every lot to be tested. It's an FAA requirement for an eligible project. So as you can see here, we ended up with a total of 26 tests, and that was far in excess of what we had hoped to have. And so we're asking for approval of task order number 5, number 1, to increase the program to include the additional testing.
All right, and the amount on that?
I'm just realizing the amount's not in that
I
task.
got it here, John.
Do you have it there?
For the testing, it was an additional $13,590. So an additional $13,590.
All right. So is there a motion to approve task order number 5 for an additional $13,590 as has been described by the director?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there discussion?
Was there any, what was the pricing of it?
We had, do you remember what the...
Well, I don't, let's see.
believe the testing, the per test was adequate. What we ended up with was out there in the field as we got into the work areas. We had hoped they would be able to pave all in one area, but the rubblization and the cutting of the sewer line, the way to put it through there, ended up taking quite a bit longer. We hit bedrock immediately underneath the concrete, and it took them a couple extra days and even I think a week or so to get through the bedrock down to where we could access the storm sewer we were trying to get to, or we were trying to put in. And so what they ended up doing was a lot more small lots than what we had anticipated. The other thing this allows us to do too is we had some areas that were outside of the federal contract area. We had areas that were in the ABMAX leasehold. We can't pay for the asphalt in there too, in that area, and also some areas in Holman's leasehold area. And the FAA did agree to pay for the testing in those areas since they were all under we had to bid it as a federal contract rather than two schedules. It wasn't enough work to break out. So the FAA did agree that some of those areas that we had done, rather than do two different schedules, which would have driven the overall price up, they said just have one schedule and we will pay for the proctoring on the other lots. So in the initial budget, we didn't have budgeted to do proctoring on those other two areas, but the FAA did agree to pay for that in discussions at the end of the project closeout, which is quite common near the end. If we're under budget overall, the FAA does allow some of those costs to be paid for.
We're still about 73,000 under the projected cost of the project.
And I understand that. I guess that in the future, I always like to compare the original pricing. And I understand it to be inclusive in the engineering contract. Is that correct? They have a certain number of tests.
Right, they had a certain number of tests.
But it was not broken out. It was in the...
They had a number of tests called out in a line item budget for that.
There was a line item?
Yeah.
So it'd just be nice to know, to compare those unit costs.
Yeah, because it was just, we had some weather delays which caused, additional lots and all of that.
Just trying to the unit costs.
I think that's a good point. All right, any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 5, contract extension for the airport director. This item was actually on the work session last time and has been moved to the board agenda this time. I think the board is aware that John's contract is up a year from May 31st of this year. So he's got just a little bit more than a year remaining on his contract. Typically in this industry, when you get down to about a year left on a contract, and that's kind of a time for a director where they become a little concerned about where are they going and where what's their future employment situation. And I think this board realizes that John has done a remarkable job in the short period of time that he's done here. So I think the feeling was that this is not his review yet, but we realize his contract's coming to an end, and we wanted to at least somehow address that so that John had a little longer comfort level, and also understands the appreciation that the board has for the work that's been done here. So we've moved it to the board agenda for an action item, and at this time the chair would consider a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. J.C.
I move that we extend the airport director's contract for an additional 20 or 30 years with, say, $1 million a year pay increase.
How about something more in line with
Mr. Chairman?
I think, J.C., I'm going to defer to Commissioner Humble on that one, if I can.
Okay.
Nice try, J.C.
Commissioner Humble.
I think I probably would speak for almost anybody here at the board, and I think that this board would recognize the work and accomplishments of the current director, and I would move that we, at this time, do a 3-year extension to his contract, which would give him a little over 4 years at this point.
Is there a second on the motion?
I would second that.
Is there discussion on the motion? Is there any other discussion on the motion? All in favor of extending Director Faulkner's contract 3 years beyond its current termination date in the contract, please manifest.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, John, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
We're glad that you're here, and we want to keep you here. So, very good.
Excited to be here.
Good job, John. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the motion, Susan. And thank you for your enthusiastic endorsement, JC. JC, you still with us?
Those Ecuadorian phone lines must not be good.
They're not good.
All right, seeing how, and I think this is pretty good that we've gotten through all the agenda items here pretty much in 35 minutes. That's some sort of a record. Seeing that there are no other agenda items at this time, time is now for Airport Authority board comments. We just go around, and if you have anything that you want to ask or any comments that you want to make, this is the time to do that. So, Commissioner Talcott.
Well, being a brand new guy, I don't have much to comment on this time, but the only thing I would have changed in the motion is John's contract for the length of my service on the board, because quite honestly, it's had a big impact on whether I was interested in serving on this board. It's only because of the good things that I've seen that make me have the interest that I do in participate and serving on this board. So I just have to JC's comment that appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Brad. And again, welcome. Glad to have you. Commissioner Swenson.
I've adopted the policy of sometimes it's better to keep your mouth closed and let them think you're a fool than open it and move all down. And I think I better hold to that for right now.
Thank you, Dick. Appreciate that. Joe.
Thank you. I think we made a very wise decision when we hired John Faulkner. I'm very happy with his duties and how he performs them. I'm glad we extended his contract, and I'd like to see him stick around longer than 3 years. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Humble.
I have no additional comments.
Commissioner Robinson.
I just want to welcome the 2 new commissioners. It's really quite a few people applied for that position. It says a lot for both of you that you got appointed. And also, I want to thank John for all your great service. I know you know by the way we vote and talk, and JC's a good example of how much we love you. So just we're very, very pleased with your performance, and I want you to know that. Thank you.
We'll try this one more time. JC, are you still there? He's left us. Only on voice, though. His spirit remains. I can feel him. I'd just like to say that, first of all, I want to thank the board for their confidence in electing me as the chair, and I will do my very best to honor that support, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm sure Owen feels the same way. It's been a real privilege to serve this board and serve the airport and work with John and this great staff that John has here. We probably don't acknowledge Rod and Sharon and Laura enough, but they do a tremendous job for the airport.
And Kent.
And Kent, yes, absolutely. And the maintenance people that we don't see that are also part of the staff. It's really great to be associated with people like this. And again, John, congratulations on your contract extension. I think, you know, we certainly support you, and not just this board, the community. The other boards that you serve on and the way you represent the airport and the community has been highly recognized, and we're very appreciative of the work that you're doing. And there's a lot of work going on up here right now. We recognize that. So we just appreciate that, and we'll do our very best to support you and the good work that's going forward.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment at this time? Anyone want to say anything from the public? I just might acknowledge Peter Johnson from the Tribune, who's always up here covering us. Appreciate your article on Frontier Airlines, Peter, and how you've handled that in the paper. That was very much appreciated by this board, because that was a very sensitive project that we were working on, and the way that we had to handle it in the public venue was, we just had to, you know, respect the confidences of Frontier and the work that we were doing with them to hopefully get them to Great Falls, which we were successful. But thank you for the way that you've reported that and handled that. We appreciate that. Anything else? We'll go ahead and take probably about a 12-minute recess, and we'll adjourn our work session here at 5 to 2. Thank you.